Hey, welcome back to the garage, everyone. Well, I tell you what, being forced to drive an S-Class Mercedes while your Cadillac is on the lift and undergoing a front-end rebuild is pure torture. But never fear, I think somehow we'll manage. All right, here's where we stand. This is the driver's side. Did a little more cleanup on this guy yesterday, and still working on it, clearly. I've been debating on whether or not I want to use some sort of rust remover gel or something. And this side over here is got torn down today, and didn't take nearly as long because, you know, I had all the nut sizes and bolt sizes in my head, so I knew which tools to grab and so on and so forth. And was a little bit less dramatic too. I didn't let the spring drop to the ground because I tied it up with a piece of rope first, and that, you know, it's always a good thing. All right, we're coming along. We'll be right back. All right, we're starting the process of cleaning up all of our parts and removing bushings and ball joints and so on and so forth. Now, the original factory service manual from 71, got this one out of the, apparently it came out of the parts department of some dealership somewhere. Bought it on eBay years ago. So on page 3-23, you have the front suspension tools that they recommend for doing this job. Now keep in mind, this is back in the day. There's probably better tools now, but I just thought it would be kind of neat to go ahead and just try to make a couple of these items and to, you know, to facilitate the rebuild of our suspension. And you have the part numbers here: front suspension service set J-8999, bushing remover and spacer, that is A1. This piece of metal with 2 holes in it, that shouldn't be too hard. And then you have this tool here, H, right? This guy right here, and that one is for, that's a spacer. They call it a spacer, but basically what you want to do is you place it between the lower control arm flanges when you press out the bushing to keep the pressed sheet metal control arm from collapsing on you while it's under pressure. Anyway, we'll explain all the purposes for some of these things as we get further into this. I don't foresee me doing a whole, I'm not going to make this complicated stuff over here. Probably just this piece here and maybe these 3 over here. So we'll just see how it goes. I just thought it would be kind of neat to make some of this stuff for the video. And I'm going to try to do it with what I've got on hand. I've got a little bit of metal here, not a whole lot of stuff, but I think maybe we can make it happen. So, all right. I think up next, we're going to get busy with the blowtorch. All right, time to do some welding. All right, there you have it. Doesn't look exactly like the one in the factory service manual, but by golly, it'll work. If you're wondering, this is a huge bolt from the side of an old railroad. It's, I don't know, who knows, probably 100 years old? I don't know. I just thought it was cool, and we'll just use it for rebuilding our Cadillac. But anyway, yeah, that came from a discarded parts from a demolished railroad. Not too shabby. And that will fit right in there like that. And when we put this thing in the press, it will keep the control arm from collapsing. All right, we were able to finish our fancy homemade receiving cup or receiver cup or whatever you want to call it. And you know, I believe I'm getting better at welding. And I'm not a professional welder by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of like that. That's not too shabby. The receiver cup fits nicely around the outer flange of the underside of the lower bushing and supports this whole thing nicely. And here's the other tool you saw us make earlier. And basically that just slips in there like a glove. So the idea is that now I can take this and place it in a hydraulic press that actually works. Which my hydraulic press over there supposedly is, but isn't, if you catch my drift. I mean, it works, but I really have no idea how much pressure it's putting down. It just, you have to really bear down on it, like really a lot, you know, to make it do anything. And then it builds pressure and builds pressure and builds pressure, and all of a sudden, pow! It's just ridiculous. It's dangerous, to be honest with you. And I'd really like to have another one. Okay, enough of that. Having built all this mess, which might have been an exercise in futility, because at this point, I'd really rather try to punch this thing out with a hammer and a chisel as opposed to using that piece of junk over there. I suppose I could go to Northern Tool and pick up a decent one, but I'm trying to save a little money on this particular project. I don't really want to spend the money right now, but that does fit nice, doesn't it? I like that. Offers a lot of support. Having said all that, what I'll probably do is come in here with a Sawzall and simply cut this main part of this bushing out and start drilling into it, and then just deforming it enough, deforming it inward once I get into two pieces, and then I should be able to tap it out of there without too much trouble. Cross your fingers. Let's see how well that goes. I'll tell you one thing, the Sawzall did not exist in 1971, that's for sure. All right, we need a little more finesse than the Sawzall can afford. So let's go for the old Craftsman saber saw that I've had for 30 years. We've got a little overhang right there. We can play around with that. Made quick business out of that. Actually, let's make two of those. We have a couple of slits that we can do something with. Don't want to get too close to your control arm, to the actual control arm. Just trying to give myself something that I can bite to with a chisel. May be able to work with that. Yeah, look at that. It came out that end there. We made progress there, folks. All right, there you go. So basically, I'm going to use a similar process on the other side to get the rest of the bushing out. These tools work great if you have a working press. And I would have been done in literally like 30 seconds. Also, I don't have a proper sized tool to press this out. It needs to be precisely 1 3/8 inch, and it needs to be a solid piece of steel I don't have that, don't know where to get it. I'd probably have to drive to Birmingham to get something like that. So for right now, this is the method I'm going to use. And the other side shouldn't take long at all, to be honest with you. All right, we're going to use our tool here to keep ourselves from damaging our lower control arm. Let's get a bigger cold chisel here. That ain't working. There we go. All right, that wasn't too awful bad. All right, while we're in the groove, we're going to go ahead and take the other bushing out of the other control arm. I'll do that one off camera. All right, we're finished making our receiver cup, which is still a little hot from all the welding and cutting and bending, for our lower control arm ball joints. And I've already used it on the first lower control arm, and it works really well. That's the wrong side. And we just set it in there like that. All right. And on the other control arm, which had a different brand ball joint in it, which it was a little different, I used this guy, which is the receiver cup for the bushing that I made, and it's so happened it worked on the other ball joint, but not for this one. But for this one, I've just got a standard piece of pipe that I'll be using to place right here, and it fits really nicely. And that's what we're going to use for our press. And we'll put an arbor plate on top of that, and I think that'll work out really well. But the ball joints are not that bad, so my little press can handle those. So I'm going to go ahead and press this one out now. All right, so we've got our lower control arms all naked now. Well, except for the rubber bump stops. I still got to take those out. By golly, there's still something else to do. Okay, at least that's 95% done. All right, now it's onto the upper control arm. So if your car has original ball joints like this one does, you're going to need to knock off a couple of welds the factory put on here to, for safety, I guess, and get to knock those welds off. You don't want to cut into the control arm, but you want to cut the weld off of the ball joint part. So that's what I just got through doing with the die grinder. And up next, we're going to use a puller and pull off the eccentric for the alignment purposes. This thing just presses over the ball joint shaft. So I'm going to pull that off of there, and then we're going to get this thing over to the press and remove the ball joint. All right, quick update. You have to get the eccentric off, which is really annoying because, well, it's not symmetrical. It's an eccentric. So you have to hold your mouth just right to get your three-jawed puller on there. But if you get it on mostly on the flats, you can make it work. And I just used the impact, and it popped right off. So not a huge deal. I had to play around with it for a little while to make that work right. But up next, I think there is a seal here that we need to get this boot off of here so we can see what we're doing. And we've already got the welds. We've already got the welds cut, so I think we're about ready to press this ball joint out. All right, we cobbled together something that works here. Take the pressure off that. Yeah, that's the way. Oh man, it's what What is it about redneck that you guys don't understand? All right, well there we go. Got one ball joint removed. And the process was smooth as glass, I might add. And there's our original ball joint. And this is the receiver we used. And we used this piece of pipe as our press. And that worked out pretty well. All right, up next we're going to take the bushings out of this control arm. And I've already removed the nuts from either side. Those are 1 1/8 inch. Wasn't a huge deal. Had to get a breaker bar on one side and a crescent wrench on the other, and break them loose. So the deal is with this thing is you've got to press this bar one way, kind of work one bushing out, and then work it back the other way. And the way you do that is with a 9 1/4 inch piece of 1/4 inch bar stock steel that's 2 inches wide, and you cut these holes in it, and they are some distance apart. What is that? 6. And these are 17/32 holes, and they're 9/16 from the edge. So we can make that. That's easy. I just got to go buy some more steel. So what you're going to do with these spacers is you're going to bolt them right here on this arm. When you go to put this thing in the press and press downward, they will prevent this thing from squeezing. They don't run from here to here. They just run from, they're 9 1/4 inches long. So they run from the tip of this bushing to the tip of this bushing. And when you start to press this thing, it'll keep these arms from compressing inward like that. So up next, that's the next thing I'll be making is 2 of these pieces of steel right here. All right, let's go ahead and make those 2 pieces of metal we talked about earlier. I found this 1/4 inch bar stock at Lauis, and it is 1.5 inches wide, whereas the book called for 2 inches wide. I think that's a little overkill, actually. We're going to go with this because it's easy. So we're going to cut 2 pieces, and they need to be 9 1/4 inches long for our special toolage. I have a pencil around here somewhere. I wish I could see. I could see a golf ball land. I just can't see to make this line. 9 1/4. We'll cut it a little longer, and then we'll tweak it with the grinder to make it just right. All right, that's 9 5/16, so that's pretty much what I wanted. All right, we're going to cut one more. All right, let's drill our holes. The book calls for 17 30 seconds, but I don't have a drill bit that big, so we're going to go up to a half and then maybe wallow it out a little bit. It's not super accurate stuff. This is just a tool to help us press out our bearings. Engaging safety squints. I'm going to go up to that hole in 3 steps just because I want to. Okay, this is what this looks like. So the 9 1/4 inches in the book that it calls for these 2 spacers here is basically between the metal part of this bushing to the metal part of this bushing. Now there's some rubber overhang here, so you can't get that in there clearly, so I've taken a razor and I've cut that rubber out, right? So that the spacers will then fit in there properly. So our holes line up and we're all good here. So basically what I'm going to do is bolt these 2 guys here like this, and then we're going to take this thing over to the press and we're going to start pressing out these bearings according to the factory service manual. So now, if you're wondering, why is he going through all this trouble? Okay, you know, there's modern toolage you could use. You know, I could probably just go get a 175 foot-pound pneumatic air hammer and go, and then, you know. But what I'm doing is I'm recreating what the dealership would have done way back in the day. And I'm just fascinated by that, and I'm going by what's in the book. So yes, I could do it faster. I could, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do it this way, just to say that I did. All right, I think we've mimicked the factory service manual as about as good as we can based on the amateurish shop practices utilized around here. So we got one of the custom receiver cups that we made resting underneath there, and it's basically around the flange of the bushing. And then we have our 2 spacers in place and bolted up, and these guys rest between the bushings, okay, but your force is going to be on the shaft. Press will press on the shaft. I have no interaction with this bushing, but yet this is bolted to these spacers, and the spacer is placed onto the outer flange or the inboard flange of the bushing, and thus it will press it out that way. And once you press that one down, you'll flip the whole thing over and do it the opposite way. We'll either press the bushing out or balloon it, so we have to cut it out, one or the other. Hey, look at that. I think it's working. Yeah, that's as far as we're going to go. Our tool is just a little too small for that bushing flange, but we can tweak that later. All right, there you go, folks. That's how they did it back in the day, back in the dealership. If you were to take your Cadillac in to have this job done, that's how they would do it. So basically, we're going to reverse this situation and push the other one out. All you have to do is tap that out with a hammer and a chisel, and it'll just pop right out. Like a pro. All right, let's do the other one. That one was a little bit easier. There you go, number 2. All done. All right, we're going to take our spacer off, then I'm going to remove this bump stop off camera. Well, all right, folks, there you have it. Our control arms are all naked. So along the way, to facilitate the removal of all of these parts, we made some old school toolage straight out of the Cadillac factory service manual. I've got a larger receiver cup here for the bigger ball joints, and I've got a smaller one for the longer lower control arm bushing and other smaller ball joints. And we have a spacer that is used to help remove the bushings from the upper control arm. And I'll have to say, all of these tools worked really well. I was actually surprised that I was able to make it work, but that one there, got to tweak that one a little bit. One of the ball joints came in and scraped the side, so just got to tweak it a little bit. And I think maybe I might even put a coat of paint on that. All right, so that is basically the hard part of this job. The hard part of this job is over. Let's cross your fingers on that. So what's next? Okay, so I'll probably bear you the gory details of cleaning up all these parts. I had considered, and I may still in fact do it, I may take these to Birmingham and get them soda blasted after the 4th of July, and that would include the sway bar and the torsion bars and the brake shields sitting over there. So we got 1, 2, 3, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't think I'd have the shafts blasted. So about 8 or 9 pieces. I don't think the last time I took something over there, I took the Cadillac intake manifold over there a while back, if you recall that, and they did a fantastic job. However, I'm trying to save a little money on this project, and I don't know what the price would be on all that, so I don't know. That remains to be seen. But what I may in fact do for the rest of the weekend is degrease these parts some more, and then break out the wire wheel on the drill press. And then I've got a half a mind. Now this is crazy talk. I've got a half a mind. You know, I've got 5 gallons of evapo-rust, right? All I would have to do is get a long Tupperware container about 6 or 7 inches tall and about yay wide, and fill that rascal up with evapo-rust and just dunk those things in there. Let them sit for 8 or 10 hours, and boom, I think that would work out really well. So I think that is my next step. All right, here we go. I've got this lower control arm cleaned up with the wire wheel best I could. And I think we're going to go the easy way. I'm going to try this out and see how well this works. I got my 5-gallon bucket of evapo-rust over here. And let's just see how well this works. Come on. What are you doing? There we go. All right. Good old evapo-rust. Evapo-rust is usually yellowish in color. So if you're curious about that, this evapo-rust hasn't been used all that much. Mostly it's been used to get the rust out of the fuel tank of that old Mercedes over there. Just go ahead and soak it on up there, little buddy. I've only got 5 gallons, so we're going to see how much coverage we get here. I was trying to find a tote which had the proper dimensions to house the part, but yet at the same time allow for complete coverage of the part with the evapo-rust. I may have to flip the part upside down to get the top part to be covered completely, because really the bottom part I really don't care about. It's the top part that we want the rust off of, and that's the top right there, so I'll probably end up flipping it over. All right, we flipped the control arm over, and I think we got all the parts submerged that we want submerged in the evaporust, and I think that's going to work out really well. So while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the hardware from this front end and dump that in there as well. And so we'll have some nice shiny hardware when we get ready to reassemble the front end of our Cadillac. All right, folks, I think I'm going to call this a video. This is going to be part 2 of our Cadillac complete front end rebuild. I have decided that one thing I will not do is replace this center link and this pitman arm. I've got in here with a crowbar and tried to move these things back and forth, and man, that thing is tight. Let me tell you what, I think somebody changed that out actually in the not too distant past. So that is a good part. However, we're going to need to do the rear main seal on this car and the front crank seal, so we may take a break in the front end rebuild project and take a diversion and get that part done. Why? Because this has got to come down, right? So the procedure is take the 2 bolts off of the idler arm over there, let this thing drop down, because you cannot get this off of the car without letting this, without lowering this. So we may in fact do the seals on this engine as well, because I know they're leaking, because I can see all that grease up in there. And if I get really crazy, I've got a leak in my power steering system too. I may do something about that. So, all right, folks, that's going to be all for part 2. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new Cadillac video, don't forget to click that little bell down there somewhere. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy maintaining, restoring, and driving your classic Cadillac.